The Yogurt Shop Murders. December 6th, 1991. It was a Friday night in Austin, Texas. The holiday season was just beginning. Families were out shopping, teenagers were hanging out, and the city felt alive with the excitement of December. Inside a small frozen yogurt shop called I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, 4 teenage girls were finishing up their night. 2 of them, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison and her friend, 17-year-old Eliza Thomas, were working the closing shift. Jennifer's younger sister, 15-year-old Sarah, stopped by to keep them company. Along with them was 13-year-old Amy Ayers, the youngest of the group, who had joined her friends that night. It was supposed to be a normal evening, a night filled with laughter, friendship, and plans for the weekend. But by midnight, the yogurt shop will be transformed into the site of one of the most horrifying crimes in Austin's history. Shortly after midnight, firefighters were called to the store. Smoke was billowing into the night sky, and flames lit up the building. At first, it seemed like just another fire call. But when the flames were extinguished, what they discovered inside would haunt investigators for decades. In the back of the shop, they found the bodies of the 4 girls. They were bound, gagged, and shot execution style. Their bodies had been stacked together and then set on fire. The youngest, Amy Ayers, had been shot twice and stabbed multiple times. She had clearly fought for her life in those final moments. The brutality of the crime was shocking. Even seasoned investigators were shaken by what they saw. This was not a simple robbery. It was something far more disturbing. From the very beginning, the investigation was difficult. The fire had destroyed much of the evidence. Fingerprints, fibers, and other possible clues were gone. Still, detectives pushed forward, interviewing hundreds of people and following countless leads. Theories began to form. Some believed it was a robbery gone wrong since money was missing from the cash register. Others thought it might have been a personal attack. But the sheer violence of the crime left many wondering if more sinister motives were involved. The city of Austin was paralyzed with fear. Parents kept their children close. Teenagers who once gathered at shops and restaurants stayed home. Vigils were held for the girls, their smiling faces now symbols of innocence stolen too soon. But despite the massive investigation, no arrests were made. The case grew cold, and years began to pass without answers. By the late 1990s, nearly a decade after the murders, the Austin Police Department was under enormous pressure to solve the case. Then, finally, there was a breakthrough. 4 young men, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn, came under suspicion. The men had been teenagers at the time of the murders. Investigators believed they had been involved, and after long interrogations, 2 of them, Springsteen and Scott, confessed. The police claimed their confessions contained details only the killers could know. It looked as though the mystery was finally solved. Families prepared themselves for trials that they hoped would bring justice at last. But the truth about those confessions would soon create more questions than answers. When the trials began in the early 2000s, the confessions of Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott were the center of the case. Prosecutors argued that these 2 men, along with their friends, had carried out the murders. Springsteen was convicted in 2001. Scott was convicted in 2002. The families of the victims wept in court, believing justice had finally been served. After more than a decade of waiting, the killers of their daughters, sisters, and friends were behind bars. But doubts quickly began to surface. Defense attorneys argued that the confessions were not reliable. They had been obtained after hours of intense interrogation. Detectives had used leading questions, pressure, and intimidation. When the transcripts were reviewed, it became clear that many of the so-called inside details were not volunteered by the suspects, but had actually been suggested by the police themselves. The confessions, the defense argued, were coerced. Then came the evidence that changed everything. As forensic science advanced, investigators retested biological evidence from the crime scene. What they found stunned everyone. The DNA recovered from the victim's clothing did not match Springsteen. It did not match Scott. And it did not match the other two suspects, Pierce or Wellborn. The evidence pointed to someone else entirely. In 2009, after years of appeals, the convictions of Springsteen and Scott were overturned. Both men were released from prison. The case was once again unsolved. The families of the four girls were devastated. After nearly 2 decades of pain, they were back at the beginning. Their daughter's killers were still unknown. For years, the case remained cold. But then, a new breakthrough arrived. Advances in forensic genealogy, the same technology that helped solve the Golden State Killer case, gave investigators a powerful new tool. In 2022, officials revealed that a new male DNA profile had been identified on the clothing of one of the victims. For the first time in decades, detectives had a clear lead. The discovery brought renewed hope. Perhaps the answers that had eluded investigators for so long were finally within reach. But as of now, no public arrests have been made. The case is still active, and the killer or killers remain unknown. The yogurt shop murders continue to cast a shadow over Austin. More than 30 years have passed since that night. The girls Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy would today be grown women, likely with families of their own. Instead, their lives were cut short in a single night of horror. For their families, the pain never ends. For the city of Austin, the case is a chilling reminder that justice can be fragile and evil can hide in plain sight. The yogurt shop murders remain one of the most haunting mysteries in American history. A crime so brutal, so senseless, that even decades later, it continues to demand answers. And until the day the truth is revealed, one question will echo through the city of Austin. Who killed the 4 girls in the yogurt shop?